All guilty of it. We have a long day, and then rather than talk it over, work it out in our minds, we resort to the half-gallon of ice cream in the freezer. It's a stress coping mechanism that tastes good, but isn't actually doing us any good. Therapist Michelle Lewis is here to help us rewire our brains and move past our stress eating habits. It's so good to have you.
Thank you.
I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I feel like this touches everyone. Emotional eating, stress eating. Why is food our go-to, do you think?
So to answer that question, I need to give you a little bit of a background on the stress response. So our body and our brain are not wired, or we're not built for prolonged stress. We are built for imminent danger. That does not include the to-do list. Okay,
it grows and grows and grows.
It grows and grows and grows. So what happens when we're stressed, we have an adrenaline response. So adrenaline is released into our system, and to ready us for fight or flight, which is the purpose of that system, we put sugar into our blood. So that readies the muscles for fight or flight. And then to calm everything down, we have a chemical called cortisol that comes in to just soothe everything. But the way it does that is it puts more sugar in our blood system. So we haven't used the sugar from the adrenaline response because we're not outrunning that tiger. And we haven't used the sugar from the cortisol response. We have 2 doses of sugar. But to make it even more complicated, cortisol lowers our insulin response, so we don't break it down at all. So that ends up gaining weight.
So we're overloaded and it's lingering.
And it's lingering. So that's why we have weight gain when we have prolonged stress. So then, this is a really complicated issue, but food does provide stress relief. Our fight or flight response occurs in our sympathetic nervous system. And when we eat, it engages our parasympathetic nervous system, which calms everything down. But then we make the connection in the brain, oh, cookies solve stress.
Cookies make me feel better.
Cookies make me feel better.
Ice cream makes me feel better.
Because it legitimately does, but every time we go back to food over and over again, it creates more and more connections in the brain.
So you've literally eaten yourself into kind of a wire trap of sorts.
Absolutely, absolutely. So then you have that, but cortisol, because of the prolonged exposure, actually corrodes your brain. So you've got all of these things going on. The 2 areas that it corrodes are the hippocampus, which regulates emotion, which allows you to deal with stress, so then that's compromised.
Okay.
And our frontal lobe, which tells you, hey, you don't need food, you can do something else. So you have the 2 parts of the brain that would be most advantageous in helping you deal with stress that are now damaged.
That are shut down. So there's a lot going on, but summary, we're a mess when we continue to fuel our body and calm ourselves that way.
It's not just laziness, it's not just lack of willpower, it literally is the wiring and the chemical response that's happening in the brain.
I want to get to some solutions. You're so good at working with your clients to help them find what works for them. It's not as simple as simply saying, don't eat.
Right.
Don't open the fridge.
It's weird, we haven't thought of that, right?
I mean, come on, why isn't that working, right? For all of those Americans out there who need the help in this department. Let's start with exercise. It seems like maybe an assumed, oh yeah, of course they're going to talk about exercise, but there's actually a physical benefit, not just the weight loss, but a brain effect from this as well.
Right. So the beautiful thing about exercise is that it actually repairs the damage caused by stress. So in a damaged area of the brain, what happens is exercise creates new pathways to healthier areas of the brain, which allows you to cope more effectively. So there's that piece. And then overall, it creates a sense of well-being, so then it leads to healthier decisions. It helps improve your sleep, it helps improve your mood, it helps improve your confidence.
Does the type of exercise matter? Is this blood pumping, heart pumping cardio? Is this weightlifting? Is this a walk around the block? Is it just motion in general?
So all of the above, but what really matters is that you're doing it consistently, and it's something that you can stick with long term. So if you're just doing it to do it, and your heart isn't in it, and it isn't enjoyable at all, you're not going to stick with it, and it's just going to become another stressor instead of relieving the stress. But in those moments when you feel really stressed, short bursts of heart pumping exercise actually can burn off some of that adrenaline, so that your body is actually working the way it's intended to work.
So in the moment, that could help.
That can help, yeah.
Is this really a stress issue, Michelle, or is this an emotional issue?
Well, both, because what tends to happen is people start then lumping all of their uncomfortable emotions into stress and anxiety.
Into stress eating,
Right. Well, and just they label it as stress or anxiety. What what is really helpful is if you can slow everything down and start to understand what emotions are actually underlying the stress.
So we're adding sadness and anger and frustration.
And shame. Shame is a big one for a lot of people. And anger, unexpressed anger, definitely comes out in food. One of the things that I've been doing a lot with my clients is working around a therapy called emotional brain training. It's actually very specific, systematic skills that help you pop yourself out of that stress response, and then when you use them over and over again, it does rewire the brain.
We're out of time, but I want to touch on breathing. That's a big point for a lot of people that can really come forward as a helpful tool, is the right breathing technique.
Yes. So overall, oxygen calms the brain, but if you can extend the exhale longer than the inhale, it engages the parasympathetic nervous system just like food does.
So just stretch it out on the outward.
Just stretch it out. It calms the brain, calms the heart rate.
Michelle, where can we get more from you?
So Salt Lake Weight Counseling website is slweightcounseling.com.
Thank you. I know we took a big topic and boiled it down into a short conversation, but we appreciate the tools.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.